Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at using Spotlight to launch apps in macOS Tahoe. So in macOS Tahoe, the Spotlight menu gets a complete overhaul. It has all sorts of new functionality, including a mode that's specifically for launching apps. Now, you may have already been using Spotlight to launch apps, and if so, you can continue to do so the same way. So you could press Command Space, start typing the name of the app, and once you get the app as your top hit there, you can just press Return, and it will launch the app. So it works the same as before if you were doing it that way. But now there's a mode specifically for apps, which is great because instead of having Spotlight look for files, mail, messages, fonts, all sorts of other things, you could just tell it, just show me apps. That's all I need to do right now, and quickly launch an app. And this actually replaces LaunchPad, which is not a part of macOS Tahoe. So if you used LaunchPad before, you're going to want to learn this new method of launching apps with Spotlight. So let's take a look at this new functionality in Spotlight. I'm going to bring up Spotlight by clicking on the icon for Spotlight in the menu bar. And this will bring up Spotlight, but notice it looks a little different. It's got the search field here to the left, but also these 4 buttons here. This first button shows the applications icon. So as you can guess, this is what you would click to search for an application. The others are for searching for files specifically, doing something called actions, and also looking at that clipboard history. But in this video, we'll just focus on applications. If I click here, I enter this special mode where it just shows me applications in a grid. I can now use my mouse or trackpad, scroll through, and click on an application I want to launch, like Calculator. And you can see then Spotlight goes away and the application launches. If you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost through Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now, there are many easier ways to get to this besides clicking the icon here and then clicking applications. Notice, for instance, that you see the keyboard shortcut Command 1 appear here. Matter of fact, each of these has a keyboard shortcut. There's Command 2, Command 3, and Command 4. So instead of clicking here, I could simply click to bring up Spotlight, and then Command 1 takes me to applications. But you probably don't want to combine a click and a keyboard shortcut like that. You can instead use Command Space to bring up Spotlight and then Command 1 to go to applications. Or just hold the Command key down and do Space and then 1 to get there. Now, as you can imagine, there's an even quicker keyboard shortcut for that, but you have to set it up. If you go to System Settings and then go down to Keyboard, go to Keyboard Shortcuts, and now look for Spotlight. There's an entry here for Show Apps. You have to enable it, and then you have to set it. So I'll double click in here, and I'll set it to Control Command Space. That makes a nice set here. Command Space for Spotlight, Option Command Space for Find or Search, and then Control Command Space for Show Apps. If you were using LaunchPad previously with a keyboard shortcut, you may actually want to use the exact same keyboard shortcut you used for LaunchPad instead, so that you map in your mind this new functionality to what LaunchPad used to do. So now I can use Control Command Space, and it takes me right to applications, and now I can click or just type and then return to launch an app. It's faster than using Spotlight by itself because Spotlight isn't going to present you with a slight pause while it also looks for files and other things. There's also another way to get there, and that's to use this icon here in the dock. This apps icon replaces LaunchPad that was there previously. And as you would expect, you click it and it takes you right to the applications launcher part of Spotlight. Now, once you are in here, you can launch apps many different ways. You can scroll through this, find the app you want, and click it. You can narrow things down by typing a letter. If I type C, it's going to show me all the apps that start with C first. But it's also going to include in the results apps that have C starting another word like Mission Control or Image Capture. If I type more letters, it will narrow things down more. I get Calculator and Calendar, but notice I also get Image Capture here because of the CA in Capture. If the item is the first one here, you can see how it's highlighted. I could just at that point press Return and it will launch that app. If not, if say it's calendar I want to launch, I can continue to type until that's the only app there, or at least the first app, and then press return to launch it. Now, the other thing you can do is use the arrow keys. So I can use the arrow keys to go down and continue to go down, go to the right, go to the left, go up, and find the app I want. It'll even push scroll here to get to the app I want. So the arrow keys work as well. Whichever one is selected, that's the one that will launch when you press return. If you like, you can switch from a grid to a list by clicking on the three dots button here and going to list view. Now, everything's just a vertical list, which means you just use the down and up arrows to get to where you want. You also have categories. Notice these categories here in this horizontal list. You can scroll through this horizontal list. If I click utilities, it narrows everything down just to apps that are tagged as utilities. So you've got utilities here. It shows you just utilities, and you can continue to search like utilities that begin with the letter C, like that. You can use the delete key to go back, including getting rid of that tag. You can also select these with the keyboard. Remember how you use the down arrow to select the first item there? In this case, it would be calculator. Well, if you use the right arrow, it selects the first tag at the top. And I can continue to go to the right. And when I see the tag I want, press return, and it adds that tag there to the top. So now I'm looking at creativity apps. And now I can continue to type or use the down arrow to go into these apps here, the other arrow keys to select what I want, and press return. When you start typing a name, if that's wrong, you can delete to go all the way back to the beginning. And when you get back to the beginning, pressing delete again won't do anything. If you want to get back to the general search for Spotlight, you would do that with the keyboard using the escape key. However, if you're using your pointer here and you want to get back, if you move the pointer to the left, you notice this goes to a back arrow. You can click that to go back to the general Spotlight search. There are some other things you can do with these icons here in the application launcher besides launching them. So I can control click, two-finger click on a trackpad or right click on a mouse, and I bring up a context menu. The first option is just open. The second option, though, is show in Finder. So this will take you to the applications folder, or perhaps your user applications folder, if that's where the application is, and we'll select the app. Another option is to get info, and this will simply bring up the Finder info window for that app. This could be useful if you need to see, say, the version number for that app. Another thing you could do is share. Now, it doesn't make sense to use most of these items here. It's actually going to attempt to actually share the application itself. You're probably not going to want to send somebody an application. Let them install it on their own. But it could be useful, say, in odd situations, like perhaps you've created a shortcut that takes an application as the input and then does something based on that. In addition, if you have an application selected, like calculator here, you could press the space bar and it will bring up quick look. So you get to see a big version of the icon and also the version number and how much space it's taken up, and also the last modified date. You get an open button here as well. Another thing you could do is with an application selected, use Command R, and that will take you to the applications location, just like that context menu command did. There are some settings for Spotlight as well. Let's go to System Settings here, and then let's look for Spotlight on the left. So this is where you would tell Spotlight what it should show you in the results and what it shouldn't. Most of these things don't apply to searching for applications, except all the way at the bottom, Results from System, Apps. The strange thing about this is if you turn this off and then you use Spotlight, Command 1 to go to Applications, it still shows everything here. But if you search, like with C, it shows you no results. So it kind of works, but I don't know why you'd want to turn off apps and then use the application launcher anyway. More importantly, there's this option here for iPhone apps. If you have this turned on and you're using iPhone mirroring on your Mac, then you're going to get iPhone apps in the results as well. You may not want that. You may still want to use iPhone mirroring. You may still want to sometimes launch apps that are from the iPhone, but you may not want the results in the application launcher to be cluttered with the hundreds of apps you have installed on your iPhone. You may miss the ability to be able to customize a list like this by arranging the apps like you want and having folders You can't do that with this. This is a simple list, very similar to the application library that's in iOS and iPad OS. It's just a list of all of your apps. You can search for what you want and launch it. If you really want to be able to customize what you launch, your first tool should be the dock down here at the bottom. You can still customize this with your most commonly used apps. And the Spotlight application launcher can tie into that because you can drag from here to the dock to easily add apps to the dock. Unfortunately, though, you can't drag into the Spotlight application launcher like you could with LaunchPad. So I've got this image here. I can drag it into the dock into an app that accepts an image. But if I bring up the application launcher in Spotlight, I can't drag and drop it onto an app. There's one more interesting thing here that I want to point out that I don't think is fully baked yet. If you go to List View for applications and you go down to an app like, say, Mail, or let's narrow it down and just go to Keynote. Notice here in List View, it says Search Keynote, and Tab is the keyboard shortcut, or I can just click here. It then puts the tag Keynote here. And it seems now like I should be able to search for a Keynote document like that, and it should find it. But it doesn't. It also doesn't work to search inside the app, like searching inside of Mail. It just doesn't seem to work now. But if I were to do a regular Spotlight search like this and search for something, and then here at the top, look for Keynote, it adds the tag there, keeps the word I was searching for, and it does give me the result that I want. And notice how it looks exactly the same as it did before, but it works in a general Spotlight search, not if you start with applications. It seems like it should work either way. So hopefully this is a bug that'll be fixed in the near future. As it's an interesting way to use Spotlight as it is, it would just be nice to be able to start here from applications, find the application, and search that way. Another thing you may miss from Application Launcher is the ability to click and hold or control click on the app icon like this and then get a list of all of your apps. If you miss that, you can get it back pretty easily just by going to your Applications folder and actually going up one level. And there's Applications. Drag that to the right side of the dock. And now you can click here and see all of your apps. In fact, you can control click and set this to a list like that. And now you've got a handy application launcher in the dock that's similar to how that LaunchPad icon worked before. And I'm going to be doing a video in the future of all the different ways you can get back some of the functionality from LaunchPad using the standard features of macOS Tahoe, no third-party apps needed. Also in the future, I'll be taking a look at the other new aspects of Spotlight, like the actions and clipboard history. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.